Want a huge deal on a large pizza? For a very limited time at Donato's, buy any large pizza and add a large one-topping pizza for 50% off. Yes, half off. Use promo code HALF. Donato's, gotta love more.
The Sports Desk at the Columbus Dispatch presents the BuckeyeXtra Basketball Podcast. With your host, Ohio State basketball beat writer Adam Jardy.
Brandon Batiste just give me the rock. Here it goes. Up and away. Slam jam bam. And now he does a little dance.
Now, the BuckeyeXtra Basketball Podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Adam Jardy from the Columbus Dispatch. Today is Wednesday, March 18th, 2026. It's my official duty to welcome you into episode 545 of the BuckeyeXtra Men's Basketball Podcast. Welcome to Jubilation City. Welcome to Greenville, South Carolina. I'm here looking out my hotel window. The sun is setting. It's about 7 o'clock here on Wednesday evening. I just cracked open a Red Bull, which tells you that it is that time of the year. It is March Madness. We are getting ready for Ohio State's first round game against TCU on Thursday at 12:15 p.m. Eastern. There's not a lot of time between now and then, and I have spent almost the entire day inside a windowless room in an arena, which is always fun. That's not meant to sound like a complaint at all. It's been a really productive, enjoyable day. Interviews kind of nonstop. I had time in the TCU locker room, which was interesting. We'll get to that in a minute. Half an hour in the Ohio State locker room, a little bit extra time with Coach Jake Diebler, and then we watched the Buckeyes go through a open practice for half an hour, and then they headed out, and then it came time to start churning out all of the hashtag content. And I've got 2 stories up at dispatch.com already. I've got another one that will be going up first thing in the morning on Thursday, just kind of tying together a bunch of loose ends and some random interesting things that I heard and some small little anecdotes that didn't necessarily merit their own full story, but deserved inclusion somewhere, especially because it's that part of the year where, you're flying by the seat of your pants and living in the moment and realizing that, like, hey, if I don't write this now, it might not matter in 16 hours. Or, I guess it's, about 17, 18 hours. It's the best thing to cover. It's my favorite thing that I get to do on this job. It is also so jarring when a season suddenly ends. And that's just how this sport is set up. Every team except one is going to go home. Well, not everyone's going to go home with a loss in their last game because there are other tournaments, but every team is going to go home disappointed that they're not winning a national championship -1. So you're always going to deal with that. And it's always one of the harder things to just kind of process and, try to sum up or do justice to in your coverage when someone, at some point here, Bruce Thornton's going to play his last game for Ohio State. And that's going to be a challenging thing to talk about and to write about and to, kind of process in that locker room. But we're not there yet. And there's some interesting stuff today. Certainly the headline that generated my first story. And like I said, we'll talk about that here in a second. But it's been a full day. So I want to keep this relatively short because they do play at noon, 12:15 on Thursday, and there's a short shelf life for stuff like this because I'm not sure. God bless you if you're listening to this on Friday as I'm previewing the TCU game, but I don't expect you to. So we're going to keep this relatively short so you can get through it before watching Ohio State open the NCAA tournament on Thursday here in Greenville, South Carolina. So before we go any further, I want to remind you, as always, that you can subscribe to the podcast on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you enjoy your favorite podcasts. If you subscribe, you'll automatically get the newest ones just as soon as our man Patrick Flaherty, the Podfather, can grab them and publish them for us. While you're subscribing or downloading, please leave a review, please click 5 stars, and please consider telling a friend. Thanks to everyone who's taking the time to do all those things. Donato's is legendary for putting so many toppings on their pizzas, but just wait till you hear what they're taking off. For a very limited time, when you buy any large Donato's pizza, you can add a large one-topping pizza for 50% off. That's right, half off. You order using promo code HALF. Order your favorite large Donato's pizza and add a large one-topping pizza for half off today. Donato's, gotta love more. I'll also point you in the direction of the Beat the Beat Writer bracket challenge on CBS. You can search for Beat the Beat Writer. I'm sure it'll pop up there. If it asks you for a password, the password is dispatch with a capital D. I sent out invites if you were part of it last year, and I've also tweeted out the link. So if you want to join it, feel free. Please do. Show everyone how much better you are at filling out a bracket than I am, and then come on the podcast when you beat me, and we'll talk about it. All right, so the first thing that certainly makes sense to talk about, and what I think was probably the biggest headline that came out of interviews today, was a conversation that I had in the TCU locker room. So the biggest overall talking point, and like I think one of the bigger data points that comes out of just previewing this matchup, is that Ohio State has a lot more size than TCU. There's no two ways around it. I mean, Ohio State starts Devin Royal at 6'6", Amari Bynum at 6'8", Christoph Tilley at 7 foot, with 7'2" Ivan Yagovin to back him up. Now a healthy 6'8" Brandon Knoll, 6'7" Puff Johnson in case of emergency. Like, Ohio State has a lot of size, and TCU honestly just doesn't. They are rated, according to KenPom, average height of 76.4 inches, which is 322nd nationally. And Ohio State is 98th nationally in average height, 77.9 inches. So the Buckeyes start two players that are bigger than, at least equal to, if not bigger than, TCU's biggest player. So obviously size isn't everything, but watching the immediate press conference from TCU after the matchup was announced, they talked about how their size and their lack of height, but their physicality and like their strength and aggression and team approach to defense allows them to compensate for the lack of just sheer height. As a quick aside, it's weird to be talking about Ohio State as like the bigger team. I feel like how many times in the last how many years have we talked about plucky, undersized Ohio State having to match up against bigs in the big? Like, it feels a little bit reversed here in this moment. But we had when I went into the TCU locker room, Coach Jamie Dixon had taken the majority of his team to the press conferences. So the press conferences in these settings, there's a half an hour window where the locker room is open. During that half an hour, the first 15 minutes will be a couple of players or the coach, and then for the second 15 minutes, that will flip. But then once those players are done at the podium, which is filmed, transcribed, sent out everywhere, once they're done there, then they go in the locker room and they're available in there as well. So with almost no exception, I never go to the big press conference, because you're always going to get a better quote, better answer. You're going to have a better conversation with someone when often they're sitting in a chair, you're kneeling on the floor because they're just that big. But you're gonna have a better conversation in that situation than you are asking a question with a microphone and TV cameras at a podium or a giant elevated stage. So the majority of, like, I think, let's see, TCU brought 5 players to the press conference. Ohio State's press conference was Bruce Thornton, Devin Royal, and Jake Diebler. So when I got in the locker room, there were a couple guys I wanted to talk to, and 2 of them were their primary bigs, Xavier Edmonds and David Punch. So Xavier Edmonds, 6'8", 245. David Punch, 6'7", 246. Those are their primary bigs. 2 leading scorers, 2 leading rebounders, almost identical measurements, pretty similar scoring outputs. And I wanted to just get some thoughts from them on, like, clearly they've done well for themselves this year. I mean, TCU was 13-9 on February 1st after a 26-point loss at Colorado, and that dropped them to 3-6 in the Big 12. And then since then, they closed the regular season by winning 8 of 9, and then won their first game in the Big 12 tournament before losing to Kansas by 5. So the quote unquote lack of size, it might have bitten them at times earlier in the season, like they had a 4-game losing streak in January, and a stretch where they lost 6 of 8, but they've overcome it clearly. And they're playing really good basketball right now, clearly. So I wanted to hear from those 2 guys, from Punch and from Edmonds, about overcoming a lack of size throughout the course of the season. And then this is where it got interesting. So, talking with David Punch, Sorry, I have all these different files open. So when I was asking him about that, and I was, we kind of were going over like the course of the season and like what are some of the bigger teams that you've played against, and how do you feel those games kind of, made a difference? And he talked about how like they did have some struggles early. They lost in New Orleans, but that they knew that they could play against bigger teams. He said when they beat Florida and San Diego, and then they beat Iowa State at home, he said that's when it really solidified. And I said, how much do those kinds of matchups prepare you for having to play in a Big Ten team? And he said it prepares us a lot. I feel like we're battle tested more than a lot of teams in the tournament. People say we're less experienced, but this season we gained a lot of experience. I think we're very well tested. And then I said, who were some of the best bigs that you played against? And he said, Arizona for sure. They have good bigs. They're physical. He said Florida. And he said, I don't know. I don't feel like a lot of bigs can match up with us or give us a problem. I said, so what do you make of the Ohio State matchup? And then this was where it got interesting. He said, it's going to be a different playing field. He said, the Big Ten, they shoot a lot more. They shoot more effectively, so that's going to test us. Can we play on the perimeter? Can we guard on the perimeter? He said, at the end of the day, we win this game 9 times out of 10 because of how physically gifted we are as a team and athletically gifted. I can't wait to see how we play tomorrow. Now, this was just an honest thought from him. And this is, give me this kind of insight, this kind of confidence, this kind of genuine answer to a question or to a situation compared to insert your stock response at any point. I thought this was an awesome glimpse into the level of confidence and self-assuredness. I guess I'm just spouting synonyms here. This just showed me a little bit like where TCU's mindset is. Like these guys are supremely confident going into this game. They really feel that their aggression, their physicality, and their length, their athleticism, that those kinds of things will have a significant impact against Ohio State's bigs. And that very well might be the case. We might be talking about, in 24 hours, I might be doing a podcast where I'm saying, man, David Punch knew what was up. He said, we're a very physical team. We have a lot of heart, more heart than a lot of people. I think it's just that dedication to each other as well. We want to go out there and play for each other. Height never really matters. So I talked to like Christoph Tilley. I talked to Amari Bynum. I talked to Devin Royal. I wanted their thoughts on not like, hey, they said they could beat you 9 times out of 10. How do you feel about that? But like, what do you make of the matchup? Like, how prepared are you if they're going to bring this physical element to the game? Like, how ready are you for that to have to deal with that? And I mean, Devin he said he was excited about it. He said, he scored, I love it. I'm a physical guy, so whatever the matchup is, I'm going to take full accountability. I might have to get in there and hit with them, and I'll love that. I love hitting, so I ain't got a problem with it. When I talked to Amari Bynum about it, I said, what do you make of this matchup? You've got some guys that are essentially the same size as you. What do you think about like that? And he said, we've been practicing with our physicality like Michigan or Michigan State in the Big Ten. He said we're prepared to play really physical, make sure we're boxing out, make sure we get back in transition because they're a team that likes to get out in transition too. We've got to make sure we build walls and not let easy layups. I said, what do you think about the matchup, given that these guys, their 2 primary bigs are essentially your size? He said, it's a good matchup for me to get to play somebody new. So we played a Big 12 team before in West Virginia. He said, I've got to make sure I wall up and don't foul, use my athletic ability to make sure I'm there and help blocking shots. And I said, like, what's the line? How is this team threading the line between confidence and overconfidence? He said, we're confident. We can't wait to play and get out there and show the world what we can do. Now, one of the things that really stood out to me in the conversation that I had with Edmonds, with Xavier Edmonds, when I talked to him, and just trying to get some more thoughts from him on their size and their physicality, he said, I know one thing, big people don't really like to be hit, especially in their legs and stuff like that. He said, be real physical with them, be the aggressor early, and hopefully we can tire them out. So I did have a conversation with Christoph Tilley about handling physicality and about the adjustment to that this season, because I think we can all agree that he's not a banger down low. And he's much more likely to have the ball at the rim and shoot a hook shot or fade away a little bit instead of like really trying to dunk over somebody or aggressively attack the rim. That's just not been his game. And when I asked him about the physicality, he said, I think we're ready for it. He said, we've played Michigan State, Michigan, Illinois. They play very physical. I said, what was it like for you, getting used to the physicality this year? He said it was definitely an adjustment. It's fair to say I've never played physicality like that before, so it took me a little bit to get used to that for sure. But I think in the second half of conference play, I did a better job of that. I do think that we have seen him handle physicality a little bit better as of late. Certainly the his injury status, I think, played a factor in that at times this season. I still would not describe him as a bruiser, but I do think we've seen a higher degree of physicality from Christoph Tilley here recently. And that will be tested in a big way here. And I was thinking about him when I looked at, or when I was talking to Xavier Edmonds, and he was saying how, we got big guys don't often like to be hit, especially in their legs. When I asked Christoph Tilley, well, what's the key to handling that physicality? He said, just don't be slow. He said, I've got to be in position and then play smart, use my speed a little bit, and try to get in position earlier. So there's plenty, like I said, plenty of talk about the size, about the physicality. I talked to Brock Harding, TCU's one of their starting guards, who played against the Buckeyes last year in the Big Ten tournament. He played at Iowa the last 2 years. He's got experience going against the Buckeyes. And so I asked him, what's different this year preparing for Ohio State compared to last year, getting ready to play in the Big Ten tournament? And he said, a lot of it's the same. He said they have a really good player in Bruce Thornton. He said they're hot right now. Mobley coming back and playing well. We've got to prepare for that as well. Their bigs up front are good too. They've got a lot of size. Bynum's a good freshman. They've got a lot of front court discipline and in the back court too, so they're really complete this year. He said that playing Michigan and Florida early in the season allowed them, and realizing they could hang with those teams and beat Florida, he said, that let us know it doesn't really matter the size as long as we play our game, do the things we do, play harder than everybody. It's just who's going to play harder and do the right things. I did ask him about Bruce Thornton. I said it's, because he said basically last year it was like Thornton and Micah Parrish. Those were the two guys they were kind of worried about the most. I said, is it any different this year? And he said, yeah. He said, Thornton does a lot of the same things, but he's really good at scoring off of ball screens. So you got to be ready for that. We got to be able to get out at John Mobley, not let him get open threes because he's a really good shooter. He said we can't let Royal get down in the paint. So he did say overall he felt like they're a more well-rounded team than the version of Ohio State that they played last year. So anyway, that was the real big takeaway. And I think the thing that was most interesting for me trying to talk to people about today was just this physicality, this aggression, this how that stuff is all going to impact this game, and whether Ohio State can do enough and play with enough intensity, enough physicality to match that. And when we talked to Jake Diebler, he said we're absolutely ready for it. He said we play physical too, something we take a great deal of pride in. He did say they may not look on paper as big as some of the teams we play in the Big Ten, but make no mistake, they're just as big as some of the teams we played. Their physicality, length, and athleticism in the front court might give up a couple inches to some teams we played, but their aggressiveness makes up for that total height. We're anticipating this being very much like a league battle. Now, as far as the Ohio State roster goes, it sounds like everybody will be available, minus Joshua Johnwina. I don't expect Matthew Griachich to be available. And Miles Hero is obviously out. He's redshirting. But I did talk with Griachich in the locker room for a little while. I'm going to write something about him probably in the next 24 hours here. But, it's an interesting deal because he hasn't played since mid-December. And so I just kind of wanted to hear from him, what's been going on? What has this been? And in short, I said, what's held you back? And he said, mostly injuries. He said, at first I needed some time to adapt. He pointed out that he couldn't play with the team during the summer. So that put him behind when they started fall camp. So he kind of struggled to catch back up. And then once he started to feel like he was catching up, he got hurt. He said, at first it was some stuff on my knee. Then I had a bone bruise and a sprained ligament on my right wrist too. He said, that's my shooting hand, and it definitely impacted my shooting ability for over a couple months now. I said, how healthy are you now? He said, I'd say I'm pretty healthy. Probably this summer I'll be ready to go full-time from the start. That's definitely going to be a game changer. And I said, what does the future look like for you? He said, let's see. hopefully I stay at Ohio State. I definitely want to stay here, so let's see what happens. So that's at least a little bit of a status update on him. Bruce Thornton was the focal point of so much today. He was the player most in demand for interviews. So much of like the focus on Ohio State. I mean, the number of people that I've had conversations with that are just like, man, I'm glad Bruce is in the tournament. Like that is a very real, palpable, prevalent plot line. How's that an alliteration? For this team going into March here, that the recognition that Bruce Thornton has made the tournament seems to be resonating everywhere. Like even I was talking to Christoph Tilley and asking him just about like, I said, you had a lot of goals when you got to Ohio State. Where was making the NCAA tournament on that list? And he said it was up there as one of the main goals. I said, how's it feel to make it? He said, I'm excited. This is my first time, and especially my last year. It's a great feeling, especially with this group. I'm excited. I'm excited for Bruce, too. That was definitely something that motivated me, too. So, like I said, Thornton was the most in-demand player in the locker room, and it was our first time talking to him since this team was announced in the NCAA tournament. As we discussed in the last podcast, we were hoping to have some player interviews in Columbus on Monday. The schedule didn't work out that way. So this was the first chance we had to talk with these guys about like, what was the selection show like? How did you feel? What was going through your mind? And my conversation with Bruce, it was fascinating to me as someone who knows how many words I've written about Bruce Thornton in the last 4 years. But I said, what was it like watching the selection show? He said, quote, that's probably the most nervous I've ever been since I've been in college. He said, I couldn't sit down. I couldn't watch it. I said, why? He said, it's a dream I've had. He said, I've seen players rise to the occasion and become big-time players. This is the whole reason why you play college basketball. It didn't feel real. I said, when will it? He said, when I go on the court tomorrow or today to get shots up, it's probably going to hit different. I'm just taking the moment in because it's very exciting and not everybody gets to experience this. At the end of practice, the CBS crew that will be on the game was all sitting courtside, and they had Bruce Thornton go over there, and he talked to them all for a little while. I got a photo that I posted of him shaking hands with Grant Hill. And then like the team was done, guys were in the locker room, and Bruce, after doing that, he was walking off, and like it was kind of funny because Brutus Buckeye was like behind him, but he wasn't gonna like go before Bruce. And Bruce went, and like there were some fans that were asking for autographs, so he signed some autographs, and he signed a couple more, and then he started walking through like the tunnel to go back to the locker room. There was someone else who wanted an autograph, and he signed for that. It very much seemed like Bruce was kind of soaking in the moment just a little bit. So it definitely like a cool experience for him. And, that was like the next story that I wrote was just, what was this day like for Bruce Thornton? Diebler described him as, quote, Bruce is everything that's right about college basketball. A young man who came to a school, stayed during the coaching change, trusted a first-time head coach, and got a degree, became a part of a network that will take care of him for the rest of his life, and then continue to get better each and every single year. I think development is a word that gets lost right now in our sport because you're seeing the window for development be so small in many, many instances. He's gotten better each and every year as a testament to his hard work. I think Bruce is everything that's right about college basketball. Our relationship will last long, long, long after his time at Ohio State, but he's been a special player and an even better young man. Jamie Dixon was asked about Thornton, and he said, I was shocked when I saw his field goal percentage of 56%. I thought I was wrong. I yelled at our SID showing it's wrong, and it's right, 56%. That's unbelievable for a guard. He said, I didn't yell at him. I'm kidding. That's amazing. He said he's really good. He's a 4-year guy. And like I spoke to, they're committed to keeping their best players. Congratulations to Ohio State. Also had an interesting final question to Jamie Dixon's press conference. It was done in their locker room, and he was still at the podium. So he had mentioned after the matchup was announced in a press conference at TCU, it was on their YouTube channel, that he had recruited some of the Ohio State players. So he had a little bit of familiarity with the roster. So I said, what sort of background do you have with the roster? How familiar are you with a couple of those guys? He said, I don't know if I can say names. Wouldn't that be tampering or something? Are you setting me up or what? And I was like, no, you can talk about players you've recruited. I mean, unless he was actively trying to recruit active players while they were still on a roster, then, that would be a different story. But he said a couple guys off the bench that I remember. He said, I had a hard enough time getting kids out of Ohio when I was 15 minutes away when I was in Pittsburgh. It's not a place that I would venture into too often because I generally found they're going to Ohio State, and that's a battle I don't like to fight. He did say, I remember Colin White, we recruited him. We looked in, and it was kind of a strange deal. Saw him play, and all of a sudden, Ohio State came in and took him. He said it happened numerous times at Pitt until I figured it out. But we did get Antonio Graves. He said, put that. Mansfield, Ohio, great player for us at Pitt that Ohio State didn't want, and that's how we were able to get him. He said he saw John Mobley play in high school, and he did make a reference to, it sounds like they at least were kicking the tires on Christoph Tilley when he was transferring from Santa Clara. But there is some familiarity there between Jamie Dixon and the Ohio State roster. Just kind of an interesting comment post-game from him, or post-game in the media availability there. So I probably should wrap this up here pretty quickly. Just that we're verging on 30 minutes. I still got more stuff to write tonight, and the game is rapidly approaching. At this point, it is 7:25, and the game starts at 12:15 p.m. tomorrow. So we are almost there. We're going to get March Madness very soon. Hopefully, you've enjoyed the first 4 games on Tuesday night. Excited to watch Miami, Ohio tonight. Also, we'll be keeping an eye. Illinois State playing Kent State in the NIT. So former Ohio State associate head coach Ryan Peden. They won the CBI last year and now trying to make a run in the NIT. So we'll keep an eye on that tonight as well. But wanted to get something out and just kind of shed a little light on what today was like and what we learned and set up the game as best we could based on what we learned in interviews today. So get some sleep, everyone. Or if you're listening to this in the morning, I hope you slept well. And we're going to have one of the 2 best days of the entire sports calendar tomorrow when we have an entire day of basketball, and then we get to repeat that on Friday. We'll see where things stand for Ohio State, but that's all that we saw. That's all we heard today here in Greenville, South Carolina. So I'll be back with you tomorrow at some point, breaking down whatever transpires inside. I cannot for the life of me remember the name of this arena. Bon Secours Wellness Arena. Apparently they call it the Well. We'll see. But I'll be back with you tomorrow. So as always, you can send along your questions, your comments, your love notes, your hate mail, and otherwise constructive criticism to me at Adam Jardy on Twitter or ajardydispatch.com. Thank you again for listening. Thanks to Patrick Flaherty for getting this out to you. I'll be back with you on Thursday evening in the middle of March Madness. So until then, be kind, take care, and we'll talk soon. Donato's is legendary for putting so much on their pizzas, but just listen to what they're taking off. Right now, buy any large pizza and add a large one-topping pizza for half off. Use promo code HALF. Donato's, gotta love more.
Be sure and subscribe to the Buckeye Extra podcast in the iTunes Store, the Google Play Store, or on Stitcher.